In the truest spirit of Dice Throne, everything is a competition and I want to win. So what's more fun than just talking about games? It's ranking them. Welcome to Room and Board, and today's video is fun for me. Hope it's fun for you. I'm ranking all of the Dice Throne characters that I have played and played with. I have Season 1 re-rolled of Dice Throne, so it doesn't include the two, the Ent and the something else. I don't have those characters. And then I have all of the Marvel Dice Throne characters. So 14 characters total. We're gonna make a list of 14, telling you my favorite characters, why, what they do. If you haven't seen the review for Dice Throne, go and check it out. That'll tell you how to play the game. And then this will tell you which characters are garbage and which ones you should play with and have lots of fun with. And this was a fun thing to rank. I just ranked it quickly after the last review video. I say quickly, but it was with incredible diligence and many charts of pros and cons, and I've arrived at the definitive ranking for this list, but it's really close between a lot of these. What's also kind of fun is that there are 6 characters in Season 1, 8 characters in Marvel Dice Throne, and it's split 3 and 4, 3 and 4 in the first half and the second half. Not in that order, but in this order, which I'm going to tell you right now. So make sure to drop your rankings in the comments below. Who's your favorite character and why, or what your top 5 are. Tell me, I don't know if I should be asking this, but do it anyway. Tell me which of your Season 2 characters are your favorite, which if they fall in, and if you agreed with my ranking or not, and if I should be on the lookout for picking up more Dice Throne characters like Season 2 ones that are better. Don't tell me. I'm susceptible to temptation. So let's get down to it. My least favorite character, I think, and it's not just because it's the person who I've lost the most with, is the Moon Elf from Season 1. Oh, much better. Almost makes it my favorite. The Moon Elf and the Barbarian are the 2 recommended characters to start with in Season 1, because the Moon Elf has a complexity of 2, the Barbarian has a complexity of 1. The thing about the Moon Elf that is fun is you're constantly dodging damage. You're getting these tokens, you're pinging the opponent, and you're slowly whittling away their health, but in a way where you're dodging out of the way and getting these tokens to entangle them and make them lose dice and give you a chance to negate all their damage. If you roll a 1 to 2 and your evasive checks out, you don't get any damage. But if you roll a 3 to 6, well, you still do take that damage. And I think that's my issue with the Moon Elf, is that it feels fun to do these sort of dodges. And I have won with the Moon Elf. Don't worry, I'm a winner, okay? The Moon Elf feels like a tough character to play or to be consistent at because it's all dependent on those rolls. And so it's a lot harder to predict, and it's that sort of lack of predictability that I don't necessarily like, but it's still fun to play. And even talking about it, I'm like, okay, maybe I should give it more of a shot. But yeah, I think Moon Elf is my least favorite, but I still, to be clear, would play with any of these characters any day, and I'd whoop your butt. I don't know why I had to be so confrontational. We're just here trying to have a fun time. I don't know why you had to get so aggressive, Chris. Jeez. So yeah, that's my number 14, is Moon Elf. Number 13 is Black Widow. Black Widow, she is a 4 in complexity, and she has this really cool flow to her character. Her character is based around getting all of your character's upgrades into your hand and out on the board. She even starts with an ability that you can draw extra upgrades and you can put them out on the board quicker. And when you have all 5 out on the board, then you really start to ramp up. And that's, I understand, to represent Black Widow sort of doing her training and becoming on par with all these other superhuman people when she's just a regular person. And so I like the concept of it, but I don't really like the execution of it. It feels like you're spending a lot of your time just trying to get these out on the board and not that much time interacting with your opponent. I think that's where this one gets a bit lower for me, is because I like that interaction with the opponent and not as much teching up. I think if you got a good tech up run, she would feel really fun to play, because obviously you're like super powered and you're just demolishing your opponent. And so it's finding that balance of getting those tech ups and really being able to kill your opponent. But she out of the Marvel set falls the furthest down for me, just because the flow didn't feel as fun as some of the other ones. So that's number 13, Black Widow. And then number 12, we have another Marvel Dice Throne character. That would be Captain Marvel. And I think even with Captain Marvel, even going at number 12, we're getting from I didn't like it that much territory to, yeah, I liked it fine. You know, she's a 2 in complexity. There's not too much going on with Captain Marvel. you're going to be accruing these cosmic ray tokens, and they're going to build up, and then you can expend them to deal more and more energy, like Captain Marvel's big super blast to just obliterate the opponent. But I think where Captain Marvel falls a bit short for me is that her tokens just don't feel that fun. They're just damage stacking, that's it. They're either damage stacking or they're defense stacking, and I don't necessarily feel like Captain Marvel, if that makes sense. Honestly, Black Widow feels more thematic than Captain Marvel does. Captain Marvel just feels like they wanted to include a basic character for new players to understand, and that's probably why you saw this Captain Marvel versus Black Panther going around during the initial stages of the Marvel Dice Throne Kickstarter. That's what they put out to reviewers to showcase, to experiment with, because it's the most accessible. That sort of accessibility is fine, and it's fun, it's just not as interesting as the other characters, and so that's why Captain Marvel is my number 12, and then followed by Black Panther being my number 11. Black Panther, I think, is better than Captain Marvel, hence why, he's above her. What's fun about Black Panther is that every time you get damaged, you get like a token, and you get to charge up the more tokens that you have. And when you have like 8 tokens, you get to unleash this big vibranium blast, this kinetic energy that you've stored up, and unleash it upon your foe. And I like that. I like feeling, there's a time bomb with me taking damage. I don't even mind that I'm taking damage because you're gonna get it. Watch out, I'm becoming stronger and stronger. That's a fun arc to it, and it gives Black Panther a little bit more of a shape than Captain Marvel. Black Panther is definitely the better person out of this box. Also a 2 in complexity, but just feels a lot more fun than Captain Marvel did to me, and so that's why they're above. But again, it's similar to Captain Marvel in terms of the arc of the character, and there not being too much going on other than storing up and dealing damage and trying to roll correctly. So it feels a bit less strategic. Any of the sort of lower complexity characters feel a bit less strategic, and therefore I like them a bit less because they're less dynamic, their flow of what happens. We're not going to quite make it 4 for 4 yet. 4 in a row Marvel, no. We're moving back over to Dice Throne Season 1, and in my number 10, 14, yeah, my number 10 slot, we have the Pyromancer. Oh, see, this looks fun. These are good. Oh, I should have been showing the boards for the other one. I'll do that moving forward. The Pyromancer, all of their abilities deal with these flame tokens, and so they're getting flame tokens which will boost the damage, or they're scorching you with flame which will deal consistent damage to you, and you have to figure out a way to deal with those status tokens or you're just burnt. You burnt. And that seems fun, but it also feels a little bit one note. Burninating the countryside can only get you so far, Pyromancer. The fun part of the Pyromancer are the Fire Mastery tokens, which you can accrue, and then if you roll certain combos, you can then expend all of them for big, explosive energy and explosive chunks of damage at your opponent. And I like that a lot, and building up feels good. Honestly, Black Panther and Pyromancer are really close. On another day, Black Panther might have been over Pyromancer because they have that similar feeling of build-up and explosion. Yeah, and it's tough now, even thinking about it. I think, why am I putting the Pyromancer over Black Panther? And I don't quite have a good enough answer, so we might as well call it a tie. Is that, again, that feeling of build-up and explosion is fun. I think the variance of tokens that the Pyromancer has, they've got 4 tokens. Black Panther kind of only has 3. I think that might edge it out in terms of giving you options of stuff to play with. So that's number 10, the Pyromancer. Moving into the top 9, it's again from Season 1, we have the Shadow Thief. Now the Shadow Thief is the most complex out of the Season 1 characters. Well, they're tied with the Paladin, who obviously is better because you haven't seen them on this list yet. The Shadow Thief can be really fun, or they can be really annoying. And that's part of what makes them fun. Their whole deal is they've got this one token, the Shadows token, where they just literally sneak into the shadows and their opponent can't do anything. And this is interesting because if your opponent is really offensive and doesn't have a way to use their abilities to kind of tech up in those times when you're hiding, they might get frustrated. If they do have those abilities to tech up, you're just delaying the inevitable. And so as a Shadow Thief, you have to rely on your poisons and gaining CP, gaining more combat points through pickpocketing, potentially stealing them away from your opponent There's a lot of trickery that can happen with the Shadow Thief, and I do like the trickery style of play, but I also think that can lead to a really annoying game. So it depends if you're on the receiving or the giving end, and sometimes you want to give, sometimes you want to receive, right? Depends how you're feeling on that day. But this can be annoying or it can be really fun, so that's why it lands in this sort of middle ground as the Shadow Thief. And then in the bottom half at number 8, finishing it up, we have, yeah, we got Doctor Strange. We do have Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange is a fun character. Doctor Strange is the most complex out of the Marvel characters, coming in at a 5 complexity. Again, the same complexity as the Shadow Thief. Doctor Strange has some really fun abilities. Doctor Strange has the Deja Vu ability, which if you rolled 3 times and you hated your dice and you've got a Deja Vu token, you can spend it and then start your offensive roll phase all over again. That's pretty fun. Doctor Strange can also get a lot of deck cycling, which is great because if he gets spell cards in his hand, he can prep those spell cards having an ability and then cast the spell cards in a different time having an ability. He's got a really interesting cycle that you have to manage, and that makes sense with Doctor Strange. You want to have those sort of time loops and manipulation of the time stream as well. Where Doctor Strange loses points for me, they also have the Crimson Bands status ability. Now we're getting into the weeds, the specifics, because again, Doctor Strange is pretty fun, but not that fun. Doctor Strange loses some points with his Crimson Bands because they stop a person from being able to play any cards on their next roll phase. But usually you get that Crimson Band status token during your offensive roll, and then it just affects the opponent's defensive roll, and you're not often playing cards in a defensive roll phase anyway. You're saving those cards so you can try to manipulate your big, bad, huge attack. And I just think that if that was adjusted, maybe it would be too powerful, right? Maybe that's the balance that you have to get, but that just feels like, it just feels like something for the sake of something. So that's where Doctor Strange loses points. I like the spells, I like the flipping of the spells, whatever, but the Crimson Bands is a bit underwhelming to me, and so that's why you're under the top half of it, Doctor Strange. Moving along to number 7, the 7th best Dice Throne character out there. This might be a hot take, but I don't care. Maybe it's because you never forget your first, and that is the Barbarian. The Barbarian is simple. The Barbarian is a 1 in complexity. The Barbarian is simpler than Captain Marvel and Black Panther, and simpler than both of them combined, because then they'd be a 4. The Barbarian is just punching you. That's it. But the Barbarian can also heal, and that's the whole game. It's, do I punch, or do I heal, or do I do both? Do I try to heal my defensive roll, and do I just keep punching you? And I think it's because of my own nostalgia, not nostalgia, but my own experience with this game, that I played the Barbarian first, and I just kept on rolling, kept on punching, and really enjoyed being reckless and dealing damage to them and dealing damage to myself, and finding the balance of hurting yourself versus hurting them. I think it could be better implemented, honestly, looking at this now. Now having moved on to my Dice Throne connoisseur phase, maybe the Barbarian has been updated with the reroll, I don't know. You'll have to let me know in the comments. But yeah, I just like the Barbarian. I like that he can friggin' stun you so you can't do anything, and then just keep punching on you. What's more to say? It's a great starting character. I think that's it too. I think because the Barbarian is such a great starting character, and the Moon Elf is also a great starting character for that variability of what happens, and I see why they're pitted against each other, because you can then negate it. But while the Moon Elf depends on rolls, the Barbarian's just punch, punch, punch. And I feel gives a much better first impression. So that's why it's number 7. Moving along to number 6, and this is tough. I almost want to change it to number 5. It's that close. But I think I'm just letting... Yeah, I'll talk about number 5 when I get there. Number 6 is going to be the Paladin. The Paladin is a great character. They really are. They're also 5 in complexity, and their whole shtick is they're just gaining CP. They're just gaining so many combat points, and when you play the other characters, you realize how hard it is sometimes to get combat points. And then you have the Paladin, who's often sitting with like 7 or 8 combat points. And you're just blown away because of how tanked up they are. And having all of that power feels so strong, and it's so much fun being able to tank up and then just unleash a wave of cards and manipulate the field and have like a devastating attack. Honestly, the Paladin's tokens aren't anything to write home about, but their whole flow of gaining CP is just, it's just a friggin' blast. That's what it is. So that's why they're my number 6. And then really close, you'll see we haven't touched on anyone in this Marvel core set. As we head into our final 5, that means 4 out of the top 5 are in this box. And that's also somewhat maybe why I should have swapped the Paladin in here. So it's really a tie, but my number 5 is going to be Scarlet Witch. And the reason I like Scarlet Witch is her one ability, her reality warp ability. She has, her status effect tokens are fun and they feel powerful, they feel game breaking, they feel very witchy. And I will leave my feelings about how crap a character she is in the Marvel universe and how Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness was a bad movie. Yes, it was. Come at me. It was too campy, even for Marvel. Scarlet Witch is a horrible villain, shouldn't have even been in it because she should have been arrested by the FBI at the end of WandaVision for enslaving an entire town. You don't just say, oh, sorry, you were dealing with trauma. You say, no, you need to go to jail before you hurt other people, which is exactly what she ended up doing. Oh, she couldn't go to jail because we had already filmed the movie. That's the reason. So annoying. I despise her whole plot line and her stupid kids. I really didn't like it. But I do like the character and her witchy tokens and her abilities like Reality Warp, which can swap one of her dice for one of her opponents while they're rolling. And that is just such a hugely powerful move. It stops them from getting their ultimate ability. You can't get an ultimate ability because you need the symbol on your own dice. And when you're using one of Scarlet Witch's dice, you can't. You got to use the numbers. So for that, she really moves into the rankings. I also love that she's got a lot of flexibility. She's got these other tokens which can then take on the form of anyone else's positive status effects. And I think that's a really cool thing to do as well, that she can then steal your abilities and use them for her own purposes. So that's Scarlet Witch. She's number 5. Tied with the Paladin, though. Scarlet Witch is number 6. Paladin's 5. No, I already said it. Scarlet Witch is number 5. I'm saying this, I also want her to be 6 because I don't want to be like, oh, make sure you got to go out and get this one set. These are all my favorite characters in this one set. I think any set is fine. If you think the characters look cool, you'll probably have a good, fun time with them. My number 4 is in this box. We'll see if my number 1's in this box or not. There's a chance. There's a chance it might not be. My number 4 is, they're not in order here. My number 4 is Miles Morales Spider-Man. And the reason Miles Morales is so high is because, for 2 reasons. They have 2 defense abilities. Most characters only have 1 defensive ability. I think only the Shadow Thief, at least out of the characters that I have 2 defensive ability. That's these in green. Miles Morales has these 2 defensive abilities, one that will defend against damage and one that will deal damage back. And so you get to choose when you're being punched what you want to do, depending. And I think that's really cool. But I also think it's really cool that he's got these combo tokens, which basically just let you take another turn. And it's so powerful. They're usually obtained by dealing 2 damage and a combo. So it's this like chaining thing that keeps on going. You're like, and you really get the sense of Spider-Man jumping around and performing acrobatics and not just trying to bring the hammer down, but just doing these little punches back and forth and really chipping away at people. So I think that's kind of cool. Those are my 2 reasons why I really enjoy playing with Miles Morales, but I enjoy it less than playing with my number 3. We're in the top 3 now. Again from this set, we have Loki. Loki is my number 3. Loki is my number 3 entirely because of one single token. His illusion tokens. I don't care about anything else he does. I can't remember anything else he does. He sucks otherwise, but he has these 1 tokens where the mechanic as it's described in the rulebook is this, or on his sheet rather, is this. You have 3 cards, one that says take all damage, one that says take half damage, one that says take no damage. And if I use an illusion token, I get to put these 3 cards in front of you, and then I get to say, and it says specifically, Loki then says, pick this card. And then the opponent picks a card, they flip it over, and whatever's on there happens. So if you're attacking me for full damage, but you pick the card that says no damage, I don't take any damage because I've successfully tricked you into shooting at an apparition. And I love this. I love this mind game that happens when you say, okay, pick that one. Why am I telling you to pick that card? And the specific language around saying, it's not just he puts the cards out and says, and then you pick a card. That would be ridiculous. It says you put the cards out, and then I actively tell you and try to get in your head to say, pick this one. Or should you pick the one to the right? Or should I pick the one to the left, right? And you can arrange them in whatever way you want, and that means something, and it's this silly double bluff. So Loki is super fun because of that element to him, which brings us to number 2. We're down to 2 characters. One is on here, one is on here, one is up there. Number 2 will reveal my number 1, but we're going to talk about my number 2. And it's really close. I got to take a moment to think about it. Absolutely, I am. I took one look and I was like, yep, that's my number 1. My number 2 is Thor. Thor is so much fun. And the reason is because of Thor's stupid hammer. Basically, a lot of effects will be like, you can either throw or retrieve your hammer. Meow, meow. And when you throw the hammer at someone, they take 1 damage. When you retrieve it, you get a little electrokinesis token. And if you get 3 of those tokens, you can spend them to draw an extra card. You can throw or retrieve your hammer at any time by discarding a card. And so just having the ability of being able to gather up all these electric kinetic energy and then just throw your little hammer back and forth like and chip away with those 1 little hits of damage, which make the difference in the end game when you're kind of chipping away at someone's health and then you just discard your whole hand of cards to just go and just slap them silly across the face with your hammer until they're dead. That just makes me so happy. I think the flow of Thor, and Thor always getting all these cards and getting more and more cards, you go through your deck a lot more, and that's one of my complaints with Dice Throne is that you don't get to see a lot of your deck. You won't see a lot of your deck a lot of the time, and so it's hard to prepare for those sorts of things. And again, that's why you would think the Black Widow would be super high, but I think Thor is just like a better implementation of being able to have a lot of that cycle. Same with Doctor Strange too, has a lot of that cycle. So I think Thor is really, really fun in how you throw that hammer back and forth. That's just my favorite thing to do. So that's my number 2. My number 1 is not in this box. My number 1 is still from season 1, and that is the last character that we have to talk about, the monk. I friggin' love a good monk, baby. And this is one of the best monks. And it's entirely because of the 1 status token, the chi token. And it's very simple. It's so simple. You can use your chi tokens to reduce damage, or you can use your chi tokens to deal additional damage. And I spent the whole game being like, pretending to flow like water and saying, whoa, or no, I'll block the chi, or I'll take it. And it embodies this flow sensation being the monk. And it felt so stupidly good to just be like, can I use 5 chi? And just like feel that flow. And I felt like a cool martial artist monk. And that's what you want to feel like when you're throwing dice at each other. You want to feel stupid and nerdy, like a cool flow like water monk, baby. The monk also has the evasive maneuver, which the moon elf does as well. Kind of funny that the monk has that thing that you roll the 1 to 2 and maybe miss, but it feels less random because the other ones are so kind of focused. Like his transcendence brings him to be. I can't stop doing this. Anyway, yeah, I love the monk. I love playing as the monk. I love playing with those chi tokens, and you can also make people spend their CP and make people and remove effects from yourself as well. You can cleanse yourself and just cleanse the mind and be one with the dice and ready to roll. Anyway, that's my ranking. Those are my ranking of the characters. Let me know. Yeah, really do let me know what your characters are, what your favorite characters are, which characters I got completely wrong, which ones I got right, which ones you like, which ones you don't. And let me know if you end up picking up Marvel Dice Throne, because I'm really happy that these 4 characters are in this box because I like them the most. I think I could replace, no, I wouldn't want to replace anyone. Well, obviously I could replace Scarlet Witch because she's the lowest. I could replace Scarlet Witch, not necessarily with Doctor Strange, but with Black Panther. You know, that sort of building up to have a simpler thing to do, but Scarlet Witch has a nice complexity of figuring out what she's got to do, so that's why I'm glad she's in there. Hope that was entertaining. I had a great time with it. Dice Throne is a great game, and I hope if you end up getting it, that you like it as much as I do. And one that I am happy to talk about because I think it's fun. So that's it. Thanks for watching. My name's Chris George, and I don't have a catchphrase. But did you know that back in ancient times, instead of rolling dice, they would roll teeth? Yeah, you would take the teeth of your enemies and gather it all together like pogs on the school playground, and then roll against each other. Depending where the teeth got stuck into, that's the number that was rolled. This is true. Look it up and you'll find that exact information, and if you can't find it, just keep looking. Bye.